only on the Grand Strand, but in the world. He's been featured in Forbes magazine, the Wall Street Journal, NBC, and many other publications. And now, the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan.
Welcome to Blake Sloan Real Estate Show. Awesome new show this week. All kind of stuff going on. Very interesting show. We got all kind of stuff. Good news, bad news. We have the brand new market numbers in, fresh, hot off the press, real time, and they're shocking in a way, right? There's something we talked about last couple weeks on the show that we saw a significant decline, 20+% decline in home sales just last month compared to the same month last year. But the good news is we already talked about that because I already called that and told you guys that would happen based on what was happening with pending deals. And so that's just something I think that we'll talk about today and look at the details and what's happening with that. Some major news nationally with a lot of like some horror stories, some gloom and doom type articles coming out right now. We'll talk about that. Some Wells Fargo just came out and said it could see a 1980s style housing market. Recession basically kicked off by 8% plus interest rates. We'll talk about that and kind of what's going on overall. We had some high interest rates hit 23-year high, then it actually went back down. We had the best day in mortgage rates since March just this past week between Thursday and Friday, which was great news. So that's very, very helpful. We'll talk about that, which puts a little more fuel on the fire there just for a little bit. We'll talk about that part on the show. Just a lot of great stuff. We'll kind of look at local stuff, some national stuff. We'll really dig into what's happening here with new pending deals because we come into this holiday season. We'll talk about, does it make a whole lot of sense to sell your property during the holidays? I personally will tell you some great stories. Been doing this for a very, very long time on why it is if you're thinking about selling, just based on a few different reasons that have really paid off for a lot of home sellers in the past. We'll talk about that. Also, we still have our investment fund. Our investment fund has been pushing very, very heavy. We have millions and millions of dollars looking to buy properties here. We've locked up about 5 in the last month here, looking for anything from residential homes, condos, commercial property, commercial buildings, even buying businesses right now. Land, self-storage, anything out there you have investment property you just want to kind of deal with, get rid of. We give a very, very fair price, much more than these investors out there or wholesalers who are offering pennies in the dollar. We're able to offer a very, very fair price that's simple. You control the closing date, you control the terms on it, and we just try to work out what's best. And we're able to come in and purchase that and either do a long-term hold. If it needs a lot of work, we can do a lot of work on it. We have the crews and stuff to do that. But the best part about that, usually it's just as is. So it doesn't really have to have much hassle from the seller. So we'll talk about that on today's show. And also some amazing, amazing success stories. Our team's absolutely crushing it. One was a horror story that someone actually was moving to Nebraska. They listed with another realtor, just an average amateur realtor out there, which is what many of them are. And they were buying a house in Nebraska. They made an offer on the house in Nebraska. But guess what happened? The agent couldn't get the job done, wasn't getting traction, wasn't getting marketing. And they almost lost their house in Nebraska before they found us. And thankfully, we were able to come in and get multiple offers on it and fix the marketing. So we'll talk about that along with any other great stuff we have time for today's show.
It's been featured in Forbes magazine, Wall Street Journal, Realtor magazine, and other national publications. You may be seeing him on TV with NBC and also with Fox and Friends, the morning show. You've heard the personal endorsements here by Sean Hannity, also Barbara Corcoran, Gary LaVance. Put them all together, it's just totally unprecedented. Now that's one thing, but the other thing is that Blake has trademark systems for both home sellers and home buyers. They are trademarked, so we can't give you all the details, but more than happy every week to tell you the most important part of that system.
Yeah, so this is by far, I think, the number one thing that I struggle with as a business owner and anybody else in real estate struggles with is just the perception from the consumers. They make so many mistakes that are just absolutely clueless in how they make decisions. And really, the mistake they make is they think that all real estate agents are the same. And so have one purpose behind this show. It's just to help save people from that and break them from this curse of just thinking that all real estate agents are the same. That's the number one mistake that anyone makes. And so it comes down to just their perception or view. They just want to go with any agent they recommended or their friend of a friend or the cheapest one. Like there's so many different misnomers in terms of how people understand how real estate works. And the problem is they'll spend 20, 30 years building a hard equity, paying payment after payment after payment, working 40, 50, 60 hours a week to pay that. And then 15 minutes pick an agent, and they have no clue from a criteria standpoint how to actually pick an agent. They have no questions. They don't really know what to ask. They don't know what to look for. And so that's just what this show is kind of about. It's like, look, here's the deal. The single most important variable that determines your failure or success as a home seller or a home buyer comes down to one thing only, and that thing is the agent that you choose, period, nothing else, right? Just that. That's seriously all it is, because it comes down to how does the agent you have actually execute. What most people don't realize in selling a property is a lot of nuances and very complex, and what needs to happen in the right order to get the most amount of money. And so when you sell a property, there's 118 different variables from A to Z. If each one's handled correctly, it puts money in your pocket. Property gets sold. Anything's handled incorrectly, aka they drop the ball at any point, it costs your hard-earned equity. The property does not get sold, which is a major problem. We're seeing this now finally as this market has shifted, where it kind of masked these past few years when it's a frenzy. Interest rates are super low. Buyers are coming in, buying sight unseen. An agent could just take pictures on their cell phone, sell their friend's house, and get the property sold. What we did see, though, they were costing their friends $40,000, $50,000 by underpricing it, by not having the right strategy. But here, what you're finally seeing is now consumers can see that, just like the example for the Nebraska people, it didn't sell. And all of a sudden, they're looking out for the people. And so I had this training with my team, both our seller side and our buyer side, that everyone makes this mistake of thinking that agents are all the same. We had one lady who came in our office this week, couldn't find a property, been searching for a year, and she worked with 7 different agents, and she didn't want to work with anybody specifically, and she thought that everybody was the same. And so we sat down and showed her the difference, and she was blown away. And so it's just so many things that really make a difference in what happens. But I see this happen where people will spend so much time building harder equity only to have it just thrown away by somebody who has no clue what they're doing. And they don't realize the average agent in our marketplace here sells 4 homes a year. You take the average amount of home sales divided by the average amount of agents, or the actual amount of agents, and it comes to 4.3 homes per year per agent. You take that market right now being down 20+%, you can obviously lower that number a little bit. And that's what you're looking at now. And so you don't want to gamble with your largest asset, right? We talk about this all the time. Would you ever go on an airplane with a pilot who's only flown 4 flights before? Absolutely not, right? You want somebody who's the best, who's the absolute sharpest and most dialed in pilot you can. You should demand that same level of excellence with your largest assets, right? The same exact thing if you have an attorney, right? If you're charged with a crime you didn't commit, I don't want the chief attorney. I don't want the attorney who my friend recommended who's only done a few, trials before or free cases. I want the most awesome, most amazing, aggressive attorney I can find to give me that competitive advantage in the courtroom. And you should demand that same level of excellence and advantage when you're talking about how to get the most amount of money for your home. And so what we did was we said, look, there's got to be a better way in how everything worked in real estate. I got in the business in 2005. I grew up in it, mom, dad, aunt, uncle, grandpa, grandma, entire family sold real estate. And I just grew up in offices and knew what I wanted to do and study business. But when I got in, I said, there's got to be a better way. And so I sought out, found different coaches and mentors, and found people outside of real estate and brought their systems and processes into real estate. And we flipped upside down. We created this thing called the Guaranteed Sold System. The only proven system sells twice as fast and for up to 20% more money than traditional methods. And it works very, very, very well. But we realized is like when you're selling that property, we said, hey, look, if you had a reverse engineer to win every single time, what would have to happen in the right order? And so we did that, mapped it out, and created a system that was proven repeatable, backed up by 2 things. Number 1 is a team of people, a team of specialists. We have a team of specialists who specialize in what they do so they can be the absolute best at it to create leverage for our client to give them a small advantage. And you stack up all those small advantages, what happens is it gives them a massive competitive advantage on the back end, which is how properties sell faster and for more money. And so, for example, we have inside sales, we have outside sales, we have different administrative team, listing specialists, closing specialists, a full-time photographer, full-time videographer, full-time graphic designer, full-time listing specialist, full-time buyer specialist. All these things are able to be very, very good at what they do because most people, you understand, you're a master of none if you're trying to do everything. And so we master those details, give our clients a small advantage, and you stack those dominoes up over 118, it creates a massive gap between us and everyone else, and those small details make a difference. And so that system is what I designed. We license other agents, other parts of the country. It's exclusive to us, but the market we're in right now has slowed significantly. The stakes are much higher. Some people have the highest equity they've ever had, and so they want to make sure they get the most out of it. But what we're seeing is that slowly kind of getting eroded based on prices declining a little bit in certain areas, sales going down. So you want to make sure right now more than ever that you have a qualified expert who can help guide you and navigate your largest assets, because it does make or break the home sale. It makes or break $30, $40, $50, $60,000 that I see every single week that gets mismanaged by people who have no clue what they're doing, right? They get a license in a 3-week class. You can do it online and pass a simple test that has nothing really to do with what actually needs to happen to get a home sold. And what you realize is that most agents don't understand anything about marketing. They understand about putting MLS. They do the 3 Ps. They promise you the world to get the listing. Number 2, they put it into MLS. And 3, they pray that someone else brings a buyer. And meanwhile, they're down the street hunting down the next listing. And so what I've done is I'm basically a marketer in the real estate business. That's my forte. That's my specialty. And that's what allows us to get our properties differentiated, to get more traffic, get more eyeballs on it. And that's how they sell faster for more money. And so if you want to know more how it works, you owe it to yourself to at least investigate, at least find out and say, hey, look, what's the difference of the two? So you can see, because it does matter. And these small mistakes or small things can really add up to a lot of money to your back pocket as a home seller who's selling. On the flip side, too, for buyers out there, right? It's a very difficult market right now, very low inventory still, a lot of different nuances, a lot of things changing very rapidly. We created this system for buyers out there called the Unfair Advantage Home Buying System. Get you priority access to foreclosures, distress sales, desperate sellers, the absolute best negotiation and purchase price, as well as the home inspection to get you to that closing table successfully. And both of those really are designed to help do one thing. We want to be your real estate resource for life. And so we represent our clients after closing, give them the best painters, the best vendors, the best plumbers, best lawn service, whatever they need, we got them, because we want to be the real estate resource for life. And that's just what our culture is. And so if you want to know more how that works and how we over deliver every single time, reach out, call me, 843-808-SOLD or BlakeSloan.com. I just made a promise that I would talk about that because I see it every single week. I saw it multiple times this week, how people made massive mistakes. We saw a perfect example. I'll give you an example really quick. I had a builder who called us freaking out, wanting us to buy his spec home. I guess they had a buyer that they were building it for. The buyer backed out. So now the builder's stuck with this. It's almost $1 million home. The builder ended up listing it with their builders. So it's an investor builder, right? He has an actual home builder who's a contractor. So there's a builder, let's call him the investor. The investor has the house. The actual contractor is the one that physically built it. And so his wife just happened to be a realtor. So it's getting to the end of the listing. The builder is freaking out. He said, hey, look, my note's coming due in early 2024. Here's what the number is. We haven't had any traffic. And so we start looking at it. We're like, man, okay. And the pictures were absolutely horrendous. The property wasn't quite finished, but you could still see a lot of the great things on it. The first photo was taken with a cell phone. It was crooked. Now, you're talking $1 million property here. The second photo of the entire process was Sherwin-Williams paint card. And it was a physical picture of the paint card that showed some green paint. Now, this is second photo. Now, if I'm a buyer and I see that, what happens? It turns me off. I move on. It does not look like $1 million property online. The third photo was a picture of the bathroom floor with some just dust and things, no actual lights or electricity on. The fourth photo was a picture of the bathroom counter, just the sink with trash on the right side of the photo with 2 empty boxes that had trash coming out the top of them. And it just went on from there in that scenario. And it said, look, does this look like $1 million house to you in market online? Absolutely not. And so we say, look, do you know how many properties that the agent sold before? Looked it up. The agent had sold one house in the history of her entire career, but is gambling with this guy's asset almost $1 million, and it has zero marketing. The marketing is absolutely horrendous. It's disgusting when you look at it. And this guy has no clue. And so it's just the reason why we share this, because so many people, and this person here, very affluent, right? Investor, built and sold a lot of homes before. But the reality is his investment here is being mismanaged, or was being mismanaged before they reached out. And we're able to show him, hey, look, here's the difference and here's why it matters. And so if you want to know how it works, reach out, call me, 843-808-SOLD or BlakeSloan.com. We'll take a quick break, right back in a second.
Now, here to give us more insight into this is my friend Blake Sloan of Sloan Realty Group. I know certain programs make it a lot easier for the seller. Which ones do you offer? Hey, Sean, in addition to our traditional program that sells your home for top dollar, you have an instant offer, a multi-offer, guaranteed offer program. I represent a large investment fund with millions of dollars who are looking to buy homes for grand right now. And what kind of return can you expect from them? Here's what I'll say. Every seller's needs are different. Some need maximum convenience, and we deliver that every single time. Some need the most amount of money, and we have a program for that as well. We have a trademark program that nets sellers up to 5 to 10% more money than traditional industry methods. All right, great insight, and thank you for this update. Call Blake Sloan today at 808-SOLD. That's 808-SOLD, or online at BlakeSloan.com. That's BlakeSloan.com, and consider your home sold.
Hi, I'm Barbara Workers. I'm excited to connect with you. Only real estate. We've got several options themselves really taking the stress.
That's right. For sellers that time crunch, you better get sellers on a certain date. Being after it almost even ready.
That's great. And the seller has a report.
Use our approved marketing plan to sell to the highest price.
Work with my friend Blake Sloan and get your home sold on your terms.
Welcome back to the Blake Sloan Real Estate Show. Market update. Got all kind of great stuff coming out, or interesting stuff coming out. The brand new market numbers. We were talking about this in last week's show. We couldn't wait. I couldn't wait for the new numbers to come out because we were just really kind of make sure we could verify what we knew was happening in real time. Because if you look at closed sales last month, it's down right now, down 20.5%. The first day of the month, we're a couple days in right now. Into the month, the first day was down 25+%. Thankfully, some of the sales were entered in a couple of days late, but like right now, if you look at single family home sales last month across the entire Grand Strand, which is like, Brunswick County down to past Georgetown, into like Marion, Dillon, things like that, and the entire Myrtle Beach area, obviously, sales down 20.5% from the same month last year. And so, for example, for residential resales, which is what we like to do, you can get the most accurate data from that. Overall, if you look at October of 2023, there was 395 home sales that closed versus last year, there was 497 closed. And so we knew that was going to happen because we kept talking about how the new pending deals kept slowing down. If you've been listening to the show for a while, we talk about two types of numbers. We call them the front windshield numbers, which is like what properties are going pending every single day and how many's gone pending the last 7 days. We just watch that every day in my office, every morning in the huddle, we talk about it because it allows me to have a real-time pulse on the market so I can advise our clients and say, hey, look, it's softening a little bit. It's getting, it's increasing a little bit. We should be a little more aggressive in our pricing, a little more aggressive in our offer. And so it allows me to understand how do we need to make offers based on what's happening real-time data. And then the overall rear view mirror numbers, the arrears numbers, are the ones like this we're just talking about with a 20.5% decline. And what that means is these are properties that closed in October. And so obviously you look at that in arrears. So as soon as we got to November, we can see October. The problem with that, though, is that if it closed in October, it went under contract 30 to 60 days prior to that for the most part, right? So if it's financing, you're talking anywhere from 30 to 60 days. Cash is really 15 to 30 days. Right now, you're seeing about 20 to 30 for cash deals. Overall, most will do a 30-day closing just to be able to do due diligence, right? Inspections, different things they want to do. And so that's the one challenge you're looking at. So if it closed in October, it probably went under contract in early August. And so, as you know, a lot of things have changed in the marketplace since August. And so that's why you want to make sure you're looking at both types of numbers. And so really quick, I'll do the front windshield numbers. These are properties that went under contract the last 7 days. And we compared that week versus week. And so in the last 7 days, as of today, there were 449 properties that went under contract here on the Grand Strand. If you look at that, though, there's 149,762,831 that went under contract. So 149,700,000 went under contract last 7 days. If you remember, if listening for a while, we want to be at 200 million or above, and that's a market that's pretty hot, doing pretty good. If you go back just 6 weeks ago, the overall numbers there was 556 properties under contract for 214 million. Now, as rates have risen significantly, right, to hit 8% plus and start getting above that, the last 6 weeks, the amount of properties going under contract in a 7-day period has dropped 20%. A little over 20% in that scenario, and that's like 20.78. If you look at the volume, though, the volume has dropped 32.47% in the last 6 weeks. That's significant, right? And that's when people started freaking out. You start seeing some of the articles that are nationally, they're kind of talking some gloom and doom. And I was in the business in 2008, been in the business in 2005. And I remember when they started putting those gloom and doom articles, no one really believed in that first. And all of a sudden, they had enough of the articles and it just kept hammering and hammering. All of a sudden, you started seeing the tide shift and people started believing it. And then buyers got scared and it compounded the effect. And all of a sudden, you saw that, go down very, very quickly. And so we'll talk about what's happening over there with that in a few minutes. If you look at properties, I like to look at how many high-end properties. So we sell a lot of high-end properties. 8 properties over $1 million went under contract the last 7 days. The problem is last week's show, there were 14 properties over $1 million that went under contract. There were 59 properties over 500,000 versus last week's show. There were 76 properties over 500,000, and active listings has continued to climb. So right now in Horry County, there was 975 active properties on the market right now. Here's a crazy difference. If you go back to just January of 2023, so I got my notes here from my show on my January 6th show of this year. There's only 364 properties. There's 364 properties that went under contract there when it was very, very slow then. But there's about 400 listings that were available We're up to 975. So there's a lot of more active listings. It's climbed up in the last few weeks. You go 6 weeks ago, there was only 881 properties active. Right now we're at 975. And so what that means is demand has gone down significantly. Supply has gone up. We always know the supply demand equation, the lagging indicator is price. And so you're going to see that soften here, in my opinion, the next few weeks or few months, because it's just the numbers game. Thankfully, it's been able to hold pretty tight because inventory has been so low, right? So many people are locked in at 2 and 3, 4% interest rates. They're not moving. So even though demand has gone down significantly, inventory hasn't really gone up. And so what you've seen is it has helped prices overall. And so look at that overall. Like I mentioned, looking at the rear view mirror numbers, the numbers at close, they were down 20.5% last month. Sales price has still been resilient. I do think that we'll probably see it decline a little bit because this is one of the first months we've seen significant decline, like 20% plus in a little while. And median price up 5.6% at 380,000. Average sale price up 3.5% year over year at 468,000. It is down month versus month. So if you go back to August, it was 487, September 476, and then October 468. So it's gone down, from 487 to 468 in the last 2 months. And I do think we'll probably see that continue to go down slightly a little bit if rates continue to stay high, which many people think they will. Overall, inventory is still very, very low. It's at 3.2 months, which is meaning it's still a super seller's market. There's just not enough inventory right there to get to that buyer's market. Anything that's 6 months or above is a buyer's market. And so it's a very, very weird kind of back and forth right now. Just less buyers, less sellers. And so it is protecting price, which is very, very good news for homeowners out there. Here's kind of the main problem. And here's why it's important, the agent that you use. So if you look right now, the average showing that listings are getting in our MLS, it tracks every showing in the MLS. The average listing is getting 4.1 showings per listing, right? And so if you look at the average listing in MLS, they're getting 4 showings every listing, which is not a very amount of 4 and 6 months is not a whole lot of showings. But the problem is right now, the average amount of showings it takes to go under contract, they call it showings depending, is 13. And so you need 3 times the amount of showings that the average listing is getting until it goes under contract. And so that's the problem with using the average agent. That's the problem with using an agent who doesn't spend any money. That's the problem using a discount agent who doesn't market on your behalf, is you need 13 showings to get an offer statistically, but the average listing is only getting 4. And so that's why you need someone who understands marketing, who understands differentiation, who can get you the exposure you need for your property through marketing, through buyers, through telephone calls. And that's exactly what our system does and our team does. We made 18,000 phone calls last week in our office to buyers that we have, matching up buyers and sellers. And so that's just something that's impossible for one single agent to do. And that's why we have so many buyer leads that we're matching up to our sellers. We'll talk about that here in a second. Looking at condos very similar. Right now, condos sales down 9.5% year versus year. So it compares October versus October. This past October, there's 399 condos that closed versus 441 last year. Sales price still resilient as well. Condo sales price up 8.9% for the median price at $245,000. Average sale price up 9.6% at $279,000. Months of supply, it is up a little bit at 4.1 months, but it's still below that overall threshold of 6 months inventory, which is when it switches from a buyer's market to a seller's market. But that important equation of showings per listing and showings to pending is very, very similar. Right now, the average condo is getting 3.2 showings per listing, but the amount of showings it takes to go under contract is 10.9. And so the same exact example there is they need 3 times the amount of showings they're actually getting to go under contract. And so what most people are doing is they don't have the right advertising, so they just end up dropping the price because they have an average amateur agent. And what happens is it costs them their hard-earned equity. And so you can see with that equation, that's what I'm meaning is if you don't have the right marketing, the only solution you have is to drop the price. And so if you drop the price, and it could be a combination of both, right? But most of the time what I see is the agent only puts it MLS. They have not great photos, not great marketing. There's no really hustle to pushing it. And so what's happening is the average condo right now is getting 3.2 showings, but the amount of showings it takes to get a contract is 10.9. And so you can see the problem. And so if you're thinking about selling, I want you to understand that's why the agent you choose matters, because you want to understand the data and you want to make sure you can get the right exposure and the right marketing that can help you get there overall. And so that's something interesting we'll look at. The one thing driving this, right, has been interest rates. Interest rates hit a new high last week's show, I think 7.87. They hit 8.03% just this last week ago and hit a 23 plus year high, which has been very, very I guess significant in the real estate world because buyers really started pumping the brakes. Thankfully, we had some good news, and that basically the Fed world will call it. This last week, they were kind of pausing some rate hikes, and the rates dropped back down the best day since March of 2023. And so right now, 30-year fix is 7.51%, which is great news. A 15-year fixed rate right now, 7.05%. A 30-year jumbo loan, 7.87%. A 5-year adjust rate mortgage, 7.12%. A 30-year FHA, 6.85%. And a 30-year VA loan is 6.88%. And so it's a nice little window, right? If you're thinking about selling, you've been kind of looking around, definitely want to make sure you take a look at that. You can always kind of get in right now as you can get some negotiation off price in some cases. A lot of people are desperate because their agent doesn't have really good marketing. And so you can probably get a decent offer out there. And if the rates do come back down, you're locked in a price from an equity standpoint, and you could refinance back later. And so we'll talk about that, kind of what's going on. And we'll talk about some national numbers here in a second where some big time players are predicting some gloom and doom. We'll talk about that and have our hot buyer alert right back in a second.
WRNN listeners, Clay Travis here. As investors in real estate, Buck and I both know exactly what to look for to find the agent with the best tools and marketing to get the highest sales price.
We have not a whole lot of time to do, about 2 minutes.
2? Okay. Okay.
Blake Sloan of Sloan Realty Group. If you need to sell a home and buy a new one, ask Blake about his guarantee.
Get this, Blake guarantees to sell your home at a price and deadline you agree to, or he'll buy it himself. And since you know what your current home will sell by and for how much, you can buy your next home without worrying about getting stuck with 2 mortgages.
There's simply no other agent in the market who has a guarantee that will line up against what Blake Sloan can offer you. So when you're looking to sell and buy, he is your guy. Read nearly 750 5-star reviews by Googling Sloan Realty Group. Give Blake a call today and start packing that Sloan Realty Group.
And tune into Blake's show Saturdays at 9 a.m. and Sundays at 11:30 a.m.
Welcome back to the Blake Sloan Real Estate Show. A couple minutes left. Hot buyers alert. My team and I are working with a ridiculous amount of home buyers looking to buy here in the Myrtle Beach Grand Strand area. Even though the market is down 20+%, we have been doubling down on marketing, haven't reduced it a single penny. Have buyers from all across the globe still because our team hustles and likes to out hustle most agents. We're looking at this as an opportunity to capture market share. But right now, the amount of active home buyers we have with the username, password, account in our system, 74,051 active home buyers. Again, 74,051 active home buyers. We got Gilroy, California, Charlotte, North Carolina, Rochester, New York, Lake Zurich, Illinois, Columbia, South Carolina, New York, all over. And so if you're thinking about selling, reach out to us. That's because our team is calling these buyers. 18,000 phone calls last week our team made, matching up buyers to sellers. And so the good news is when you call me, I already have buyers in waiting versus an average amateur agent is going to put a sign in the yard and hope that someone else hopes and finds it. And so really quick, got 1 minute left, I think. Success story. Very proud. That's what I mentioned earlier. Jerry and Sheila owned a house in Conway, decided to move to Nebraska to be closer to family. They listed their home with a realtor to sell it, put another home under contract in Nebraska to buy that was contingent upon their house in Conway selling. After months and months in the market, they still could not get their home sold. Time was running out to be able to purchase the house in Nebraska. Frustrated that Jerry started looking at other options. He saw our billboard and saw our guaranteed sold system. Jerry contacted us. Because of that, we came in, identified the problem, which was obviously the marketing exposure that previous listing had. We shared with them exactly. We had hundreds of buyers looking for homes exactly like theirs. Like I mentioned a minute ago, they were confident we could sell it ASAP. We started out, work with them. I designed a custom plan, launched our global marketing blitz, professional photos, the virtuality walkthrough, drove massive traffic. Within 3 days, we brought Jerry and Sheila multiple offers, driving the price up on their home, over asking price. Now they can move on, get the property sold, and they did not lose the house in Nebraska. If you want to be like that, have the success story, do not use an amateur agent right now. Make sure you use a true professional who's an expert. Call me, 843-808-SOLD or BlakeSloan.com. We'll see you back here at the same time next week.